What I know is that when I was a security practitioner, it used to take us between 6 to 9 months to hire a senior security engineer. And then you would hire that person, compensate them really well, and have them doing the exact same stuff over and over again, leading to burnout, churn, etc. So we often joke there's no silver bullets in security, but I do think that automation is a really good answer to both too much work, not enough staff, and this sense of inevitable incidents.
Welcome to a new episode of All Aboard, the show where we have real conversations with IT and security practitioners. No fluff, no talking points, just straight talk from experts and advice for tackling the toughest problems facing cloud-forward companies today. I'm your host, Alex Bovee, CEO and co-founder of Conductor One. For this week's episode of the All Aboard podcast, I'm thrilled to be hosting Eoin Hinchy. Eoin is the founder and CEO of Tines, an automation platform built for security engineering teams. Eoin has been a security leader for over 15 years, with stints at great companies such as DocuSign and eBay. In our conversation, he talks about dealing with endless tickets, which universally is considered the bane of every security team's existence, and how the need to scale response to those tickets drove the necessity for the product that is today Tines. He shares thoughts on why burnout is on the rise in the security industry and how automation leads to better security outcomes. We're huge fans of the Tines team here at Conductor One, and I'm excited to share our conversation with Eoin with you today. Let's jump right in. Eoin, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. Really awesome having you on the podcast. I've been really looking forward to this conversation because I guess the last time I saw you was in Las Vegas, and you agreed to do this podcast because I had a better lap time than you did.
That's correct. I was wondering, were you going to admit to the audience why I'm here? And the reason is because I lost a bet fair and square.
Yeah, that's fair. Hey, I'll take it. Whatever it takes to get awesome people onto the podcast.
Right on. No, I am really happy to be here, Alex. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, let's jump right into it. I'm a fan of Tines businesses and what you guys are building over there. And I think one thing that the audience really loves always is a great sort of founder origin story. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you came to found Tines. Was there a clear gap in the market that you saw? Like what was the product pull for you, and how did you decide to jump out and start the company?
Yeah, happy to share. So I've told the story a few times. I had no grand ambitions to start a company. I never really had any desire to be a founder. So I spent about 15 years before founding Tines as a security practitioner. So primarily working, helping to build and run fairly technical security teams like incident response, security operations, security engineering, those types of teams at companies like eBay, PayPal, and DocuSign. And in about 2017, I was helping to run security at DocuSign, had a team of incredibly talented people, but that company was growing really, really quickly. We had bought a ton of really excellent security tools, and they were generating tons of alerts, and my team was just becoming overwhelmed. And my team were security practitioners and not software engineers. And so although they probably could have written a bit of Python or Bash or Shell or something like that, they couldn't write software to the level that we needed to glue all these various tools together and automate the repetitive, mundane parts of their job. And so in 2017, we started looking around for tools that we could buy that would allow this super talented, knowledgeable team who knew their jobs inside out, automate the repetitive parts of it without having to write code. And over the course of about 6 months, we looked at a ton of different products, and SOAR as an acronym, I don't think was really around at that stage. So we were just looking at security automation tools, essentially. And we looked at all the products and we disliked every single one of them. Like, we hated them. None of them came close to meeting our requirements. And I said, shit, you know what? I think I can do a better job of this myself. And so that was the genesis of Tines. Founded the company in 2018, really to go and build the automation product that I wish had been available for my team. And here we are 5 years later.
Yeah, and tons of success to go with it. That's awesome. I mean, I think one thing that does really jump out to me about Tines in the space is that you tapped a vein at the right time with a security orchestration like tool set. Why has SOAR taken off so prolifically in the last few years? Like, why has it become such a major pain point? And clearly some sort of shift or something's happened in the market where people like desperately need this technology.
Yeah, great question. Well, I think automation in general has just been on the upswing for a while, right? There's just so many different data sources. There's so many different alerts that need to be triaged, regardless of the team that you're in. There's just so much work out there. I think for security in general, if you think about the problems that we're solving, that Tommy or SOAR is solving for security teams, it's really this sense of like disparate data sources and tools. And so the average security team today is receiving about 10,000 alerts every single day. They also have access to about 77 different SaaS tools. That's higher than any other team in the enterprise. The second is like engineering with 50. And so on average, you've got 10,000 alerts and you've got 77 different tools. And there's just no way that you can, as a individual, respond to those alerts across those various tools in any kind of complete way without some form of automation. It doesn't have to be end-to-end automation, but you need some sort of automation. And so I think that trend, as well as the sense of like inevitable incidents that come with working in a security team, I think that's really been why people have invested in this space. But I also think that security people, there's just nowhere near enough of us, right? You can take the number of unfilled security jobs with a pinch of salt. But what I know is that when I was a security practitioner, it used to take us between 6 to 9 months to hire a senior security engineer. And then you would hire that person, compensate them really well, and have them doing the exact same stuff over and over again, leading to burnout, churn, etc. So we often joke there's no silver bullets in security, but I do think that automation is a really good answer to both too much work, not enough staff, and this sense of inevitable incidents. And so that's why, and when we talk to customers, they're the motivations that they have for investing in this type of technology.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. You mentioned earlier that you did a little bit of like a market survey when you were at DocuSign and looked at some of the automation products and security, and just like nothing really quite sort of fit the bill. One thing that I love about your background is you are a very product-driven person. It seems like you built the initial product. You obviously, I'm assuming, spend a lot of time in the product every day. Like, how do you think about building a product in this space that customers love? Like, clearly there was some set of requirements that became just super important in your own mind when you were evaluating this. And I'm guessing you put that into Times, but like, were there some sort of first principles or some guiding principles around how you built that early product?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you so much for calling me a product person. I don't often get called a product person, especially by my product team. No, I think when we were looking at these things, we felt that they should have 3 characteristics, for want of a better term. So when you think about automation products in general, I think they need to be 3 things. The first is incredibly powerful and flexible. Right, so we needed a tool that would be stack agnostic and that could handle any level of complexity. And so in our security world, you have these like incredibly complex use cases with a bunch of different edge cases that are talking to many, many different tools. And so they have to be very powerful and flexible for a start. So that's number 1. The second thing is that they had to be very easy to use. Again, my team were security practitioners, not software engineers. And probably the most important thing I'm going to say all day is that automation efforts in general, not just security, but automations in general, they're only effective when they're implemented by teams on the front line. It's got to be the people who are doing the work day in, day out, that are empowered with the tools they need to automate their own repetitive work. That's really when the magic happened. And so we needed this product that was really, really easy to use, that you didn't have to be like super technical to get value from. So powerful, easy to use. And then the third thing is that it had to be reliable or trustworthy, right? I had to be able to rely on this tool. We were entrusting our most critical processes, from phishing to SIM alerts, to employee onboarding, to compliance, to cloud security. All these processes were going to be going through this tool. And so we had to know that it was going to be robust, that if it fell over, it would let us know, that if errors occurred, it would attempt to self-heal, all these kind of things. And so we were looking for a product that was extremely powerful, easy to use, and trustworthy. And the reason I founded Times was because we couldn't see a product that ticked all 3 boxes. There was tons that did too, right? They were really powerful and easy to use, but hey, they failed 20% of the time. Or super, super simple to use, but couldn't come close to handle the complexity of a security team's requirements. And those 3 characteristics, they're still what we think about as we're building the product all these years later. when we think about what features we're going to be releasing in the following month or the following quarter or the following year, we typically bucket them into one of those three sections. So is this a feature that's going to make the product more powerful? Great. Is this a feature that's going to make the product easier to use? Fantastic. Is this a feature that's going to increase users' trust in the product? Fantastic. But we rarely build anything that doesn't fall neatly into one of those buckets, or hopefully a couple of buckets at once.
Yeah, that's really pure from like a guiding perspective in terms of like how you prioritize the features. One thing you said that I want to zoom in on, because I think it was you said it just in passing, but it does strike me as really important, is the fact that you built the tool sort of for that frontline security person. And I'm guessing there's something about the expertise that they have in terms of being able to use the product. Like, I guess my question on this is, when you automate a lot, when you focus on automation, you mentioned like 10,000 alerts a day, you're automating these things. There is a human element still to the automation piece, either from like an expertise standpoint or even like a human in the loop part of it. Can you talk about how that expertise plays into the Tines platform or automation more broadly? Do you still have a human in the loop part of the response process? Like kind of, yeah, tell me how humans fit into the automation story.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question, because we think that automation only works when there's humans involved, either because the humans are building the automation or as a escape valve at a certain point in a workflow. And so for years, we have debated even if automation is the right term for Tines, because automation, at a foundational level is essentially taking a process that already exists and replacing it with machines, right? And that's what we did with like the assembly line and even the automated looms back in like the Industrial Revolution. But with Tines and with, I think, modern day enterprise automation workflow products, it's not quite as like clear cut as that. You need to have humans involved at various points of the workflow, whether that's supplying data in an ad hoc way at the start of the process, or acting as a sense check at some point in the workflow, or informing the workflow as it progresses. And so one example might be, and this is a really common use case for Tines customers, is a suspicious login alert will fire. So, hey, we just noticed that, Alex, you just logged in from Europe, but you says you're based here in like California. And so what a security team will typically do is, before automation, they will pick that alert up in their case management system. They'll go log into their SIM. They'll do a bunch of stuff, and they'll eventually realize, oh, actually, Alex is just logging in from a VPN or something like that. And they'll go and automatically close it as like a false positive or something like that. But what automation and human in the loop automation allows you to do is find out who Alex is, look up his like identity in like Slack or Gmail or whatever, send him a message in Slack or Microsoft Teams or email saying, hey, here's all the details that we've noticed about this weird alert. Can you let us know if this is expected? And if they say, yeah, this is expected, I'm currently on holidays or I'm signing in from the VPN, fantastic. Just double check that with an Okta Verify or a Duo Push or something like that. And then the security team don't even see the alert. But if they say, hey, no, that's definitely not me, then your automation takes a completely different path and you automatically kill the session and you page the on-call engineer and you create a critical ticket. But without that human element, it's really difficult to not just determine what the right course of action is, but to take any sort of remediative steps that are going to be accurate.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think the theme that I've heard kind of consistently from talking to a lot of security companies, and we sort of fit into this bucket as well, is that automation is a great like force multiplier, and it helps you address a lot of these non-human scale problems. Like you mentioned, 10,000 alerts a day. That's a non-human scale problem. But the goal shouldn't necessarily to always be cutting humans out. It's just give them more important context, help them feed the system. But it's just
yeah. And it's funny because there's sometimes this like knee-jerk reaction, which is quite understandable, that automation is going to take like security teams' jobs. And I can honestly say we've never worked with a security team that's reduced their headcount, right? In fact, security teams that deploy Tines increase their headcount because that team is now focused on more business impactful projects. And so the team is performing more effectively, and they're, as a result, receiving more investment from the business to go and do more cool stuff like actually reduce the company's specific risk reduction, help win more deals. And so automation is actually going to increase security teams' headcount over time.
Yeah, and presumably it also improves the quality of life of those people, as you mentioned, when you spend all this time hiring a great like security engineers or incident responder, and it's 9 months in the seat to get them ramped, and then the daily job is like just triaging like phishing.
Yeah,
Email or
totally,
whatever.
right? Like, we often say that security should be the best job on the planet. Like, it really, really should. Like, you're very respected throughout the organization. You're well compensated. You get to use these incredible cutting edge tools. Your connection with the mission of the organization is usually quite clear. But we did a survey last year, and it said that 66% of security professionals were going to leave their jobs in the next 12 months. Right, like those two things are like completely incongruous. And so the reason we think it is because just people are just getting burned out, because to your point, they are responding to phishing emails when they should be writing new detection logic, or they're having to like triage infrastructure that's out of compliance instead of like helping do threat model sessions with the engineering team.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. So obviously, Tines is sort of been on a rocket ride in terms of growth, customer growth, and adoption. This space seems like it's heated up pretty substantially. I'm really curious. This is my like very selfish like founder to founder question, but how do you think about competition? You know, there's a lot of upstarts always like in spaces, particularly when they get a lot of energy and heat. And how do you sort of focus on either just, you know, the mission in front of you, or do you care about competition? How do you differentiate?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I think, I can't remember who said this, but a wise person once said, the worst thing that competition will do to you is what they make you do to yourself, right? And so like when you're when you're paying really, really close attention to competition, you begin to like change your strategy as a result of like what they're doing, and you begin to do things that you never would have done like typically because of what they're doing and how they're positioning themselves and so on and so forth. And so although we try really hard to ignore competition and focus on what we believe is the right thing and stay true to our strategic priorities, it's kind of tricky because you find yourself in deals with competition and they may be saying like completely untrue things about you because they're trying to win the deal, right? And they're trying to win the deal and you're trying to win the deal. And so it's this constant push and pull versus, hey, we know that we're doing the right thing and we should stay true, but at the same time, man, screw these guys. You know what I mean? And so there's this, it becomes a constant battle of let's just like do what we're doing versus let's like stamp on these people and like put them out of business. And so there's I wish there was like a really great easy answer, which was like, this is what you need to do to like eradicate your competition. The closest thing I came to is just do what your customers want you to do, right? Like, and that's generally a good rule of thumb. And if you continue to just make your customers wildly successful, everything else will take care of itself, including your competition.
Yeah, that resonates a lot with me. I think it's really easy to get. Sometimes I think of LinkedIn as like LinkedIn does to people like founders and other startups what like Instagram does to kids in high school.
yeah, totally.
You can like just get on there and worry about left, right, and center, like what everyone else is doing. But I think it is true that at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is making customers happy and just super focus on that and get them what they need and make them wildly successful, and everything else takes care of itself. I love it.
The other thing I would say is that with certain competition, it's really healthy, right? It is genuinely healthy because it does force you to like think, oh crap, I was never going to ship this product, even though customers were asking for it. But now our competition has gone and shipped this thing. So like, oh man, we better go and ship this thing. And it may turn out that, hey, your customers were asking for it. You probably should have shipped it anyway, but it took your competitors to go and build it first for you to actually like, just like, suck it up and actually build it yourself. So I think competition is like phenomenal, and it helps the market and it helps your customers. So we welcome competition, but we try and stay true to what we would have been doing without that.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. Can you talk? I know I'm going deep down the founder rabbit hole here for a second, but I'm loving this. I always love good founder stories. I feel like I learn a lot from hearing other people's stories in terms of like what happened and how they think about it and responded to it. Do you have any good sort of oh shit founder stories, like when the roller coaster really dipped low and that you can
Oh,
share? If not, I'm happy to cut this section out of the
no,
podcast.
no, for sure. I'm like the hard part is not like coming up with one. It's like narrowing it down to one because there's just so many of them. Um, I'll pick one because it's like it's one of my favorites. Favorites as in like one of my favorite terribly embarrassing, mortifying stories. Um, in the early days of Tines, it was just me. So for the first year, it was just me, bootstrap, self-funded, writing the product, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, just like hammering out code. And it got to a stage where, as I said at the start of the podcast, I was very much building a product to solve my own problems. So I wasn't really talking to like customers or prospects or design partners. I was just building exactly what I thought was the right thing to build. And it got to a stage where like that gets you so far, but you need real feedback from the field and so on. And so I was trying to drum up interest and have early adopters, for want of a better term, actually look at the product and give me feedback on it. And having spent 15 years working in security, I had like a pretty decent network of other security practitioners who trusted me, who I'd worked with, who I'd been in the trenches with, who owed me favors, etc., etc. And so I trawled through LinkedIn and picked out like 120 people that I thought were a actual good fit for Tines, in that Tines could probably add value to what they were doing, who I knew and had a personal relationship with, and whose opinion I valued. So I had like 120 names and email addresses. And I didn't just want to send like a bulk email out to all these folks like in BCC going like, hey, I built this thing, will you look at it? So I wanted to try and add value, and not just add value, but kind of pique their interest as well. And so what I did was one of the main use cases for Tines at that stage was kind of like phishing response and triaging your abuse inbox and so on. And so what I did was I built a phishing automation story for every single one of those people. And let's say you were working in company A, I would build a workflow that would search all these various open source threat intelligence feeds for brand abuse and potential phishing emails abusing the company's brand. And I would bundle all that up into like a workflow, send them like a Jira ticket or an email. And so I had these 120 workflows that were like catered and customized for the individual companies on my long list. And I was going to say, okay, but I'm not like, am I really going to go and send 120 of these individual emails? That's going to take like all weeks. If only I had a way to automate it. And so I thought, oh crap, you know what? I'm going to use my own product to automate what is going to be the very first outbound campaign in Tines. And so I had built this workflow, Alex, that was going to, in a single Tines workflow, take the basic phishing workflow, customize it, do some enrichment, package it into an email, and then send the email. And I was going to do that 120 times. And I was like, I did it like a couple of tests, and I was like, this is perfect. This is working really well. And so I said, okay, I'm going to press fire. And so I pressed fire on this workflow. And sure enough, Tines was really fast. It collected all this information, and it sent these 120 emails to like my friends, former colleagues, people I trusted, like those that I really felt I could value and hopefully would try out the product. But what I didn't realize was that in doing these 120 emails at once, I was kind of creating a bit of a race condition in Tines. So what would happen was I would go and like customize the workflow for company A, and it would continue down. But in the meantime, company B was coming into the top and it was customizing the workflow. And so by the time it got to send the email for company A, it was actually sending the email for company C. And so everybody got the wrong workflows, absolutely everyone. But there wasn't a single person who got like the right email. And so I was just like, oh, fuck me. Like, I don't believe I spent all this time doing all this work. And I was like, hey, man, like, I know we haven't spoken in ages. Hope you're doing well. I've built this really cool workflow for you. Would you check it out? And it's like for a completely different company, like nothing to do with them whatsoever. Yeah, so that was a pretty mortifying one of those early days.
That story is amazing, man. That's a total groaner.
Oh, yeah. And do you know what the ironic thing is? So I sent this to like all my friends and all my like former colleagues. Nobody gave a shit. Nobody even opened the email. They didn't even notice.
It probably got marked as spam because you sent out 140 emails in like 2
Totally,
minutes.
man. Yeah, that was a
Tunnel groaner.
that was like my first lesson in like B2B marketing is that like actually no one really cares.
Like no one cares. Don't overthink it. Yes,
exactly.
I
So
love
that's one of many oh shit stories.
So this is a great segue as we kind of wrap up here. So that was your first foray into B2B marketing. I can understand how that was a little bit of like a false start since you're a security practitioner and a product guy.
Yep.
Yep. But do you have any like unpopular opinions on the state of cybersecurity today? Anything that you think are there any anti-patterns that people are sort of engaged in that you think like the world would be better if people just stopped doing it?
Oh my God, so many. So I think, well, the obvious one is like snake oil, right? That like still the predominant way that security software is sold is through FUD. And I just think it's just something that has to stop eventually, hopefully. The second kind of unpopular opinion of mine is that I actually think AI and LLMs are going to have such a net positive impact on cybersecurity. I've spent the last kind of 10, 15 years absolutely rubbishing ML as it applies to like security products. And now I've completely changed my tune. And I think the developments that we've seen over the last 12 months are going to fundamentally change the way cybersecurity teams operate and for the positive.
Can you click into that for a second? Because I think that sort of warrants like an extra level of scrutiny there. I mean, I have to imagine there's like a huge application for AI and LLMs to your product suite. I mean, are you guys doing things with that already? Like what makes you think that the market's going to really have a huge impact from the LLMs?
So I'll bring us full circle here. And remember, the three things that we're building at Tines are powerful, ease of use, and trustworthiness. And when you think about ease of use, the ability to like just have a chat interface to describe the exact step that you want to do in your workflow. So, hey, trigger this action if the severity is greater than 2. Like just being able to say that in like natural language rather than having to go and learn some domain specific query language or like JQL or something like that, just fundamentally completely shifts the like time to value within your product. So that's where we're spending a bunch of time at the minute, is figuring out how can we make the hard parts of Tines way easier by reducing the barrier to entry because of LLMs. I also think just the ability to like query large sets of data in a very natural way is going to be like absolutely critical. The unstructured data problem just becomes way easier to manage. So I'm super excited for what we're going to see in the next kind of 2-3 years.
Yeah, that resonates with me as well. I mean, we're doing some thinking in terms of like how you modernize access management using AI and LLMs, and it's like it's all very clear to your point, like just the interface of like a human description of I need this thing or I want to do this thing, and translating that into like a product configuration or something is
the interesting thing that we're very conscious of is that, hey, we've got ease of use, but it has to be trustworthy, right? Like security teams don't want this kind of black box. They need things to be verifiable. They need them to be auditable. They need to be understandable. So it's not as if, you can just slap an LLM on this and say, okay, that's a good security product. You still have to balance the ease of use with that trustworthiness and reliance and robustness and redundancy. And I think that's where the big differentiation will be, is how do you marry this exceptional power and ease of use with a suite of features that gives people confidence that this thing is doing what it's supposed to do and that you can rely on it.
Yeah, 100%. One thing I found from being in the security space for a minute is people don't like black boxes. They don't like magic. They want to understand what's happening inside of it. Because otherwise it's not predictable and they don't know how to think about it and organize their thoughts around it. So you talked for a second, sort of last question, wrapping it up, but you talked for a second about we just need to stop selling FUD in the industry, and I couldn't agree more. We're like a workflow and automation company in part for this reason. Like I want to solve the problem for you. I don't want to just sell dashboard to you that scares the crap out of you. But one thing that's really interesting about where Tides' business is you get to see a lot of the detections, the threats, presumably, like you have a little bit of like insight of that. In your opinion, what are actually the most important threats? Maybe today, next year, like what are the biggest things that are impacting companies today, and where should people focus their energy?
Oh, that's such a great question. Like the obvious answer, and I'll qualify this as it obviously depends on the size of the company, the scale, the maturity of the program, etc. But I think there's a couple of things that are going to be evergreen in terms of like priority and importance. One is identity and how people manage those identities, how people like control, audit those identities, ensure that the right people have access to the right things. That's going to be like important till kingdom come. The second thing is like a clear view of what you own, where it is, what vulnerabilities it has. So like some sort of like asset management type thing. And then I think the final thing that's important is some sort of way to track all the various work that your security teams are doing right across the stack and measure it and improve it over time. I think we've always done a pretty terrible job as an industry of saying, hey, my security program is currently at a C, and to get it to a B, this is what I'm going to do. So I think those things are we're seeing a heightened weight of importance put on that amongst our customers.
Yeah, just in terms of operational efficiency and understanding the threats that are affecting. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Owen, it was absolutely phenomenal talking with you. I really appreciate your time. Looking forward to hopefully beating your lap time again next year in Vegas, so that I can get you back on this podcast or
right on, man. Totally.
Maybe we'll get dinner that time. That was the original bet for anyone listening. Is the winner was going to buy the other person dinner, but as it turns out, Owen lives in Ireland, and that's pretty far away from the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, at least I saved myself like $40 by doing this podcast.
Yeah. What a great deal! Hey man, thanks for being on. I appreciate it. Always really a pleasure chatting with you, and have a great rest of the day, man.
Anytime. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for tuning in. This episode of All Aboard is brought to you by the team at Conductor One. We'd love to hear your feedback. Send us a message at allaboard@conductor1.com. Till next time.